Welcome back. I'm Brandon, the HBAR Bull. I do some contract work for the HBAR Foundation, but I don't do these weekly updates in any official capacity. I'm just coming to you personally to give you the latest in the Hedera ecosystem. And as always, none of this is financial advice. Use it for entertainment or educational purposes only. So obviously, I am on the road this week, but we had some great content, including a really good Shark Bites and a preview of Karate Combat 42 that I wanted to get for you guys, so I absolutely could not skip this week. But to start off, I want to talk a little bit about Twigital. Twigital did successfully launch a few days ago, and it's starting off as an iOS application, so you can find it in the iOS App Store. We really appreciate all the support that we saw out there, from supporting our tweets to of course, getting the application and using the application. And just to recap, what Twigital does is it creates these 3D assets and allows you to tokenize them all within the workflow of the application. And that sounds really simple, but we also think it's really powerful, and it's not only new within the Hedera ecosystem, but it's new within the entire crypto space. Now, of course, we want people to go and try this out, and we had a little contest earlier in the week around Halloween where we wanted people to capture their pumpkins or their jack-o'-lanterns using Twigital, and we had some really cool entries, including one that I really liked where the pumpkin that was captured with Twigital actually looked better than the real pumpkin in the picture. So nice job on that one. Now, in that guide, the one thing that I didn't mention is your selection of objects as a beginner. I know there's been some people that have tried to do guitar picks and pens and coins and things like that, and those can be challenging objects. Now, we've had a lot of success capturing coins, but it takes a little bit of practice. So I would take objects that are 3D, so they aren't flat objects, that have a matte finish, that hold their shape, so clothes are out, and that you can capture from most of the angles that you want. It doesn't necessarily have to be the bottom. You can capture the bottom, but as a beginner, you don't necessarily have to do that. Now, we do have another team that's working with 3D assets in the space called Headstone, and they're capturing gravestones. And I've done a few of these and had a lot of luck. So objects like that might work as well. So things like statues. So just like I mentioned last week, we're trying to empower people that work in the physical realm, just like the first iteration of NFTs empower digital artists. So go ahead and download it and try it out. So the next thing I want to get into is Shark Bites. We had a lot of good questions this week, and of course, Rob did not disappoint with his answers, so check it out. Rob, welcome back. It feels like we were just here.
Hey, Brandon. Yeah, these come around really quickly.
They do. We'll jump right into it this week. So Evie said, Hedera has released tools such as Stablecoin Studio and the HCS that makes onboarding very easy. In regards to your business model, do you envision Hedera will reach true mass adoption through BaaS providers worldwide using these tools to onboard their own clients to Hedera? And just for clarification, BaaS is banking as a service, just like SaaS is software as a service. So what are your thoughts on this one, Rob?
Yeah, BaaS, so it's the end-to-end model that allows digital banks and other third parties to connect with bank systems directly via their APIs. So, sort of tech first or digital banks open their APIs, and then third parties can plug into those APIs and use particular services. This is increasingly becoming, the kind of the fintech wave that's been growing and growing for over a decade now, is interacting with the traditional banking system through this kind of model. And tech-savvy legacy firms, legacy banks can, fend off the encroaching threat of fintechs by moving into BaaS, right? So it's not just the collaborative support of BaaS, but it's actually the re-architecting of their platforms so that they can be a lot more innovative and competitive in the market, right? So, there's both things apply. So the questioner suggests that mass adoption on Hedera may actually be driven by banking as a service, which is a really interesting kind of comment. I actually think mass adoption on Hedera will happen over a number of fronts, a wide number of fronts, because the services on the network are very general purpose and are very pertinent to supply chain and sustainability and consumer engagement, as well as on-chain finance and banking services. But it is true, I think, that the simplicity of engaging with the Hedera services makes adoption a lot easier, and therefore building the tools, the banking tools, the TradFi type Web3 enablement on Hedera a lot easier. So Stablecoin Studio allows for stablecoin issuers to very easily bring to market stablecoins which are native tokens on the Hedera network, wrapped in a smart contract layer which enables things like SOC 2 compliance and auditability, etc. In the last 2 or 3 years, it would have taken maybe a bank a year to run a stablecoin project, to jump through all the internal product and risk hoops, to then issue something for maybe one transaction, to demonstrate its capability, but not really at scale. With the Stablecoin Studio, that time frame is reduced dramatically. Effectively, just a matter of days to get to a prototype stage. Obviously, there's still the long kind of risk and product cycles, but as this space matures, as there's a lot more competition in the environment, as banks are not on the bleeding edge of innovation, but fast followers. They can look to their peers and try and determine where strategically they want to be placed. So, as everyone knows, I'm a payments guy, and I think the payment services that banks offer in a Web3 environment is stablecoins. That's the capability that they bring to market, and stablecoins on Hedera, and using the Stablecoin Studio enable this all to happen. And so, we're looking at payments providers such as Flutterwave in Africa that we've announced, what WorldPay are doing with stablecoins. Some of our other bank announcements that came out with the stablecoin PR, such as Jewel Bank in Bermuda that we're working closely with to issue stablecoins, and a variety of all the other ones that we've been talking about. They look to these kinds of innovative new capability in the Web 2.5 and Web 3 space, including all the infrastructure around it, wallets and custody and regulatory reporting and on-chain verification of transactions. All of that is part and parcel of what banks need to bring to market. So it's not as easy as a single solution. There's a lot of infrastructure to be put in place. But once it's there, and Stablecoin Studio is driving all of this for Hedera, banks will very easily be able to bring these primitives to market and then innovate on top. I see stablecoins actually as a platform for innovation, because every use case that requires some kind of value transfer, some kind of payment, can use a stablecoin and smart contracts, and then get that kind of level of efficiency that we expect to see in the Web3 space.
It's early days for sure, and it's going to be interesting how it all develops. All right, so the next one I think that the community is really going to like, and it comes from Reventh87, who asked, where are the Fortune 10 use cases? Are they future council members or just use cases taking advantage of Hedera? And just to give some background, I know that Mance has talked about Fortune 10 use cases. Shane has talked about Fortune 10 use cases. I forget exactly what the context is. We do have on the council somebody who's part of the Fortune 10, that's Alphabet or Google, and they are providing infrastructure in the space, but they don't have a specific use case quite yet. And then we have other huge companies like Walmart, who is also in the Fortune 10, and they have some tangential use cases that are using Hedera, but they aren't actually developing themselves. And then we have Microsoft, who again has tangential use cases in Hedera. And I actually don't think they're part of the Fortune 10, but they're pretty close, certainly in that sphere up there at the top. But they don't have a specific built use case. But Rob, what are your thoughts on the Fortune 10 use case question?
I love this question. I really love this question because it cuts to the heart of the enterprise-grade nature of Hedera. So I've got the list here. So the Fortune 10 is Walmart, Amazon, ExxonMobil, Apple, United Health Group, CVS Health, Berkshire Hathaway, of course, Alphabet, McKesson, and Chevron.
Now, I think that's one thing that confuses people is they're not at the top of the market cap list, but I think the Fortune 10 is actually based off of revenue. So that's why you see things like Exxon and CVS there in the top 10.
Yeah. And these are obviously really big, kind of conglomerate, complex businesses. So to talk about specific use cases for them actually is hard, because there are probably 1,000 use cases we can look at that might benefit the businesses, both in terms of optimization and simplification of process, or growth in revenue. But I'd like to do a deep dive on this at some point in the not too distant future, and kind of give it some real thought. Maybe a series of shark bites related to the Fortune 10, if the audience wants that. Put comments below if you do. But if we can run down quickly, so Walmart, if we think of the primary use case for the business, right? So Walmart, massive retailer, the world's biggest retailer. They've actually famously set up a private permission blockchain with IBM. And as with most of those Hyperledger Fabric private permission blockchains, it's very hard to manage the consortium. I think there's some really good public ledger use cases that could be built out on Hedera. If we look at some of the traceability, so supply chain traceability is an excellent use case. Provenance, so product provenance, and rewards, right? So consumer engagement. So we get the core themes in there. So supply chain traceability is usually coupled also with emissions tracking and scope 3 and offsetting of the business's impact. So that's our sustainability theme. We've got traceability of token products. So think Atma at a 10x scale on Walmart. I mean, that would be a really interesting thought experiment. And think consumer engagement. Think about the rewards, the product provenance through QR code or tapping one's phone on a product and seeing the full, rich kind of history of that product, or even within the distribution chain. So tracking where things are through distribution hubs, and then we could get into IoT and what Neuron are doing, and it's it's very, very exciting, but quite complex and rich. These things apply to all big retailers, and we're actually talking to a couple of really big retailers across these sorts of things. So that's good. Amazon, probably don't need to go into too much detail here, but all the things that I've just said for Walmart apply. But there's this is not alpha or speculation, but it's in the public domain that Neuron and Amazon are going to the UK. Neuron have opened conversations with them about drone deliveries, which is super exciting that those sorts of conversations are now taking place, and the likes of Amazon are looking at automated deliveries. Not just drones, I think, other ways of delivering, tracking, gig economy type use cases. So then we've got payments, we've got stable coins, we've got digital identity. So all of these use cases fit into that. ExxonMobil and Chevron are at 3 and 10, big oil and gas industry. So this is massive sustainability use cases. They are obviously in the kind of world's polluters kind of category, but also they're actively trying to change that, right? And reduce their impact and offset, and seeking to verify in an auditable and transparent way how that change in their processes is reducing their impact to the world. So that's a perfect Guardian use case, and I'll stop there for oil and gas. Then we've got a couple of big health conglomerates. We don't really talk about health tech very much, but there's a lot. I mean, there was a really, really good podcast a few weeks ago on health tech in I think Zenobia Drove. And so we should start in the same way as we were talking last week about insurance tech. Health tech is kind of one of the big theme areas I think that we should be looking at. And we know Jim Nasser and Acor are focusing very heavily on that. So I expect that to grow. There's lots of privacy, consent, identity use cases within the whole health area because it's very, very personal. Clinical trials is another really good one in that space.
Shout out to Health Ready, right?
Absolutely. Berkshire Hathaway, just think Aberdeen, but supersized. Think bigger, fund management, tokenized funds. I think that's almost certainly going to happen Maybe not with Berkshire Hathaway, but in the first instance, but more and more these fund managers are going to tokenize their funds just because the benefits are so huge, right? Being able to fractionalize it, being able to distribute coupons, being able to do your regulatory and market reporting in a way that hasn't been possible before. Those are great use cases. Alphabet, you mentioned Google. Google actually have a Web3 strategy, so we have to align with that strategy, even though they're on the governing council, they're kind of constrained. But part of that is their ETL. So Google Cloud, ETL is extract, transform, load. So it's basically taking blockchain data and making it available in a form that can be queried. So more traditional query tools are available, and so that could be one of the areas that we focus on with them. And I think that's it. I don't know who McKesson are, but maybe you can tell me. Do you know?
No. Some of them are a surprise to me as well. But
right, okay.
Again, I think that goes back to its revenue and not market cap, which most people usually go to when they rank the different companies. But well covered, Rob. And like you said, we'll do deeper dives as time goes on if everybody wants it. So again, drop your comments down there if that's what you want to see in the future. All right, so the last one we have today comes from Dumb Construction Worker 6892. And in my experience, construction workers are not dumb. But he said, I'm in the heavy civil construction industry. Most of my work is for government agencies. With construction, all the materials we use has to be certified. It would be great if I could click on a QR code on the product package and all the certification load up into the project file. Do you know if anyone is working on something like this? So to start off, I worked in the oil and gas industry, and we were the same way. All of our equipment, all of our materials, all had to have certificates that went along with it. Also, I know that there's a few personnel credentialing use cases out there that are already working on this in the maritime industry, and I believe you talked about one around this as well, Rob, and it's all around the same thing. They both could use our online notary or our online data logging service in HCS. But what are your thoughts on this, Rob?
Yeah, it's another one of these, complex but repeatable, reusable use cases. So if we think thematically around track and trace, the traceability of things down supply chains and the provenance of those things, Hedera is perfect for that. So we can do traceability through use of Hedera Consensus Service, and we can tokenize things to create digital twins, right? So there are use cases in, let's say, the defense industry or heavy construction. Have sub-assemblies where you want to prove that a particular part has been manufactured in the US as opposed to being a cheap knockoff from somewhere, else. I don't want to name any countries, but if that's important, and if you're building aircraft, for example, it's really, really important that you know where your products come from or your components come from. Similarly, any kind of infrastructure project, the type of cement you're using in roads or in bridges, the type of steel is being used in construction. The ESG and sustainability provenance of those things as well, because you're making big claims in terms of ESG for every construction, every building, every infrastructure project. All of that needs to be verified. DLT is perfect. Hedera is perfect for that. Every certificate can be logged, right? So you get a proof of a certificate, but what you need to do is attach that to the thing. How does a sub-assembly or a product actually carry all that data with it? Well, it's exactly the same as the way we tokenize carbon credits. On The Guardian. The Guardian is this policy workflow engine which has this set of rules. In the case of carbon credits, it's the project that's generating these credits that are going to be issued, and all the data associated with it. All of that data could be, the signatories to the method and the data that's being captured that is then going to be associated with the carbon credit. Or it could be the certificate of origin and the proof of of manufacturing and all the other evidence that needs to be collected. It's just the same, right? It's just applied in a different way. Similarly, we did this for wine, right? So if you've got to prove that a bottle of wine is of a particular vintage from a particular location with a particular grape type, or varietal. You collect that data and you can tokenize that. So you have a digital twin that carries all of the provenance and integrity data associated with its production. That's what Guardian does, and it's open source, and anyone can use it for any purpose that it chooses. Once you've got that token, that which is kind of an NFT, right? So it's actually a hybrid token, but consider it an NFT that carries all the metadata that is independently verifiable on chain. That then you can trace it down the supply chain, because it will be moved between wallets, and it could be secured, it could be entirely secret if you like. It could be encrypted, and none of the data is made available to the public or is in the clear. But if you've got the keys, you can kind of unpack the data, and maybe that's useful to give to a regulator or to a business counterparty. And then as it moves down the supply chain, wallet to wallet to wallet, one can track it. One can, if you know what you're looking for, you can track where all your products are. And then ultimately they get to the site, the manufacturing facility, the assembly facility, or wherever it needs to be assembled and installed. So I can imagine systems that enable all of this to happen. And these are all kind of little elements. We keep on talking about identity. Digital identity is so important in this, because firstly, the signatories to the steps in the process need some kind of verifiable credential or digital signature in order to both prove that they have the authority to do that, and then then sign the thing, which then gets logged. But you also need the operators, the builders, the project managers potentially to credentialize themselves. And you referenced a project that I've been involved with. We did this project at FPOS, which was doing verifiable credentials for plant drivers. So if you turn up on site and you've got a $30 million big yellow piece of machinery that you need a very particular certificate to drive, and you need to know that it hasn't been revoked in the last day, because the insurance would be null and void if you were allowed to drive that plant and you didn't have the license. Then all of this can be done through digital identity and verifiable credentials as well. And the site manager can check your credential is valid, it's current, and allow you on site to do the thing that you're kind of insured to do. So all of these things can be applied to this industry in much the same way as they're applied to other industries, but in different ways. And I'm very excited where we start seeing these applied. There's a couple of projects in ports that are kind of emerging. I think I talked a couple of weeks ago about us moving beyond the simple solutions into the more complex solutions. We're kind of maturing out of the space where we understand the use cases that are the smaller end-to-end use cases, and start thinking about, well, with all of this capability in place, now how do we build put these Lego blocks together in new and innovative ways? And these are the layers, the foundational layers that we're now building. So building ports, building big, working on big construction sites, identifying the use cases that we now know work, and looking at new ways to apply them into specific new contexts where there are problems to solve. It's what I love doing. So great question. Thank you.
Like always, Rob, well covered, well explained. Now, next week, I think we're going to skip a week, so it's going to be 2 weeks out. Make sure you drop those questions below, because we're going to be back here in 2 weeks. But Rob, I guess that's all we have. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you very much, Brandon. See you in 2 weeks. Cheers.
And it sounds like Rob has some big news coming up, so we're looking forward to finding out what that is in the weeks to come. The next thing I wanted to cover is Hedera put out a blog entitled Streamlining Consensus, Throughput and Lower Latency with About Half the Events. So last week we highlighted that there was a significant improvement in the time to consensus finality, and we gathered that this might have been from an upgrade called Data on Disk. Well, what was discussed in this blog may have contributed as well. The results section really caught my eye, and it said, one noteworthy observation is that this optimization has allowed Hedera to maintain its transaction volume and latency while reducing the number of events shared between nodes by about half. As mentioned, this improvement streamlines the consensus process, achieving the same results with a significantly lower event count. The Grafana dashboard above provides a visual representation of the average number of events sent out by a node per second. There's a noticeable and sustained decrease of almost 50% immediately following the deployment of Release 41. This graph highlights the significant impact of the optimization introduced in this release. This improvement also cuts down on the bandwidth cost to reach consensus, saving node operators precious resources. And in the conclusion, they again highlighted the main takeaways. That they maintained throughput and performance, they saw a remarkable reduction of approximately half the number of events created per second, and this introduces a whole new parameter for network tuning. These are the kind of continuous improvements that really allow Hedera's tech to pull even further ahead. And after covering the new gossip protocol, data on disk, and those improvements seem to be coming at an even faster pace. So I really do like seeing Hedera flex their tech improvement muscles. But the next thing I wanted to get into is from the governance side, and that is the meeting minutes from September. The first thing that I wanted to highlight was under the Treasury Management and Coin Economics Committee, where Lehman discussed several 2024 priorities, including node reward models, dynamic token economics models, network pricing studies, and analyzing the optimal allocation of network fees to support node rewards, staking rewards, and council operations. He highlighted the newly approved terms of node subsidies set forth in the node policy, which permits node subsidies in US dollars, but gives Hedera discretion to offer further subsidies in HBAR. Now, the reason why I like this is the focus on the node subsidy makes it clear that they're getting closer and closer to community nodes, and that path towards decentralization for Hedera really is critical. The other thing I wanted to discuss is something that caught the eye of some community members, and that is that there is now a council member recruitment reward, which would be $50,000 paid in HBAR. Now, from my perspective, this doesn't imply any difficulty in attracting council members. Mance and Rob aren't blowing smoke when they say there's a deep pipeline of candidates. This reward isn't about the need to provide a reward to attract members, but a recognition that it takes a tremendous amount of effort to go from introducing a potential council member and taking them through the entire process of getting the enterprise successfully added to the council. I did talk to a couple people familiar with the matter, and they felt it was reasonable that community members that introduce potential council members and help with that long process of onboarding, it would be reasonable for the community member to share some of the reward with the sponsor like the HBAR Foundation or the Hashgraph Association. But we have had community members in the past help with this process, so it certainly is possible. All right, now we're going to take a hard left turn. We're going to get into Karate Combat 42. We talked to Dane, who gave us a really good preview of all the fights. Now, voting is open right now for Karate Combat 42, so if you are participating at Up Only Gaming, make sure you get on it. Dane, welcome back.
It's always a pleasure to be here with the HBAR Bull, the one and only. Thank you for having me back.
Well, I got a lot of great feedback on this segment when we've done it in the past, so I'm happy we were able to get you back. Our goal here is to give those who are interested in up-only gaming for Karate Combat 42 some insights to help inform their decisions. Now, Karate Combat 42 is this Friday, November 3rd, starting at 7 p.m. Some people might be used to these being on Saturdays, but this one's going to be on Friday. And for anyone that doesn't know, up-only gaming is where you gain karate tokens through airdrops, promotions, or on the open market. You can get them on DeFi exchanges as well as centralized exchanges. You can transfer those to your Karate Combat app and place them on the fighters you think are going to win. And if they do, you get more tokens. If you don't lose anything. Now, a quick warning, though. Of course, this is the crypto market, so it can be very volatile. The token itself, the karate token, can go up and down in value. So even if you gain 5, 10, or even 15% more tokens through one of these up-only gaming events, the token value could drop by even more than that. So it is possible that you could lose in dollar terms, even though you can't lose in karate token terms, and that's, of course, the Up Only Gaming. But I wanted to throw that out there to start. But we're going to jump right into the fights. There's a couple fights that we aren't going to cover because you're going to get some more information on them with Nick later in the week. The first one we wanted to talk about is Alejandro Brugal and Diego Avendano. And this is a welterweight fight. Now, these guys don't have a lot of experience, but what do you expect from this fight?
Yeah, the experience levels are interesting because Brugal is actually one of the winners of the very recent Karate Combat Kumite, which was their amateur competition. Now, let me tell you, winning that Kumite is no easy feat, even though they're in an amateur rule set. They had a fight. I was there. They had a fight multiple times in one afternoon. So, you're carrying all your injuries from the previous fight and all how tired you are into the next fight that same day. And Brugal is a winner of that competition. So that's very impressive. However, this is a step up for Brugal as far as a professional competitor in Diego Avendano, because Diego may be 0-1 in karate combat, but he has a lot of professional kickboxing experience. So when you're looking for a guy who's been in there, who's been knocked out in karate combat competition, which on the one hand you could say, oh, maybe he's not cut out for karate combat, but on the other you could say, he's seen what he's done wrong at the professional level. Brugal hasn't had that opportunity yet to make those mistakes if he's going to make them. So this is a very interesting fight. It's great fight for Karate Combat's legacy because we're seeing how they can usher fighters into professional karate because it doesn't exist anywhere else, as we know.
Sure.
But I do think it's a tough bet if you're going to put it on Brugal because Avendano is at the top level of experience in professional kickboxing, and karate combat is not that much different. He has the experience there, but some people might say Brugal has power, which he did demonstrate in the Kumite, and it would be dangerous for Avendano to get hit by him. However, Avendano has one of the best training camps in the world with Bazooka Joe, and that guy is a legend in kickboxing, and he's going to learn from the mistakes as a coach, and when you've got a good coach and a fighter who listens, it's a tough combination to beat.
Yeah, and of course we have to see what the voting comes out at because you might be able to get a lot more tokens if you actually bet on the underdog and they come out on top. All right, so the next one...
I love an underdog.
Of course. The next one we want to get into is another lightweight bout, Lazar Kukalicic and Artur Gazanov. What are your thoughts on this one?
This is my sleeper contender for fight of the night. I think this fight is an incredible matchup. I have been so eager to see Kukalicic and Gazanov fight again. They've had extended layoffs in karate combat. We have not seen them in over a year, and there's various reasons for that, mostly related to visas, just travel restrictions, being able to come across into the United States. It's a little bit easier to get to the Dominican Republic, so that's one of the perks of being there on Friday. Kukalicic is 2-0 in karate combat, and he has displayed one of the widest ranges of talent and technique and skill sets. We've seen him do everything from amazing creative strikes, amazing creative takedowns. He's famously run on the pit wall and slammed somebody down onto the pit. It was so awesome. Gazanov, on the other hand, we've not seen so much grappling from him, but we have seen in his one fight in karate combat amazing striking accuracy. He did a spinning back kick that landed on Tommy Azuz's jaw, and the mouthpiece flew out. So these are two tough customers, and it's going to be a phenomenal fight. One thing I'll add is that Gazanov's training partner is the new champion of the bantamweight division, Mirzabek Tebuev. They train together in Russia. They are strong allies and friends, and I think that's gotta have a rub-off effect. Now, when you haven't seen people fight in a long time, Lazar, a little bit more of a, we don't know what we're going to see. It's been so long. Whereas Gazanov, Tebuev was also on a year-long delay where we hadn't seen him fight. So it seems like those guys we know are prepared. So maybe a bit safer to go with Gazanov from a ring rust perspective or a pit rust perspective. But Kukalicic's range is so wide, and I've been so impressed by him as a person. He has a great personality. He's so relaxed before fights. He doesn't stress about anything. This is one of my pick'em fights. I think it's extremely hard to choose someone, and you do in my opinion, you go with the underdog because that's how close this fight is.
Fair enough. Now we're going to go from some small guys to the big boys. We're going to go to a heavyweight matchup between Oscar Sosa and Elvin Agaev. So what do you expect from this fight?
So Oscar Sosa is local to the Dominican Republic. You have to always account for a hometown advantage. He's got the crowd behind his back. We saw how the crowd influenced the action in the previous fight at Karate Combat in the Dominican Republic, and a lot of the hometown guys were very successful. In fact, I think only one lost, and that was against Sam Alvey, who's a former UFC fighter. So that's huge for me. I think Elvin Agaev is traveling from Azerbaijan. It's a long way. It's a long way to the Dominican Republic. It's a very different environment, and the stress of travel is there. Not to say he can't overcome it, but when he's fighting a guy like Oscar Sosa, who is a true heavyweight, big guy. I saw his weight in another fight. It was rated at 237 pounds. Elvin Agaev is not a true heavyweight. Just for the listeners' benefit, the Karate Combat heavyweight division would actually be considered a light heavyweight division in other leagues, in the majority of other leagues. So he is a light heavyweight. Sosa is a big boy, but that also means he has to cut weight to get down to the light heavyweight, which could have a cardio effect. The thing about heavyweights is they like to finish a fight before cardio even becomes a factor, Brandon. Yeah. So I think you've got a 14-4 true heavyweight local guy in Oscar Sosa against a 1-0 Karate Combat fighter. I hate to pick against Elvin Agaev because I have his Karateka Pit Fighter NFT, but I really do feel pretty strongly about Oscar Sosa in this battle.
All right, that should be an interesting one. Next up, we have a welterweight fight, and this could be really at the top of the card. These guys, probably this is going to be an elimination for the next welterweight number one contender. We have Kenji Grillon and Vasily Antiki. What are your thoughts on this one?
You are absolutely right, Brandon. This is a contendership match. It has to be. These guys are at the absolute top of the heap in this division, in the welterweight division. And Toki, just a few years ago, when I was working for Karate Combat, we were trying to get him a title fight. So he was already there. He's kind of had to take a step back, and now he has to earn it again because of visa-related issues. We haven't seen him in a couple of years. So he's fighting somebody who has not had a layoff recently and who is the new guy in town who kind of has replaced him as the number one contender, and that's Kenji Grillon. Kenji is 3-0 now. He's fought the who's who already. He has a win over a former champion in Karate Combat. And let me tell you something about Grillon. His leg kicks are devastating.
I've seen the inside leg kicks, right?
Oh my gosh, he puts people down with them, down and out. So I think that's the key here is the guys I've seen Antoki fight in the past, they didn't have this one amazing thing, and he is so well-rounded. Mm-hmm. But for me, Grillon has this one edge where if he has the right strategy and he can blast these leg kicks to slow Antoki down, to get him off of his game, and he can't just kind of flow because he's a flowy guy. He's so talented, man. I think Grillon has the skill set to beat him, but that's saying a lot because Antoki is tough to beat. And again, a lot of people thought he was queued up for the championship. But I'm going to go with Grillon.
And there's a really good chance we're going to see these guys headlining one of the cards here in the future. So an exciting one for sure.
Strong chance.
Next up, we have a lightweight matchup between Elias Santos and the Brit Mitchell Thorpe. What do you expect here?
Yeah, so Elias Santos has no Karate Combat experience, but he is pretty accomplished in MMA. I saw one website had him rated as the Caribbean's number 3 pro MMA fighter. I mean, that's huge. His record actually isn't that great in MMA, which could mean that there's just not a lot of people in the lightweight division in the Caribbean actively currently in the regional scene. However, I did see that most of his losses were due to rear naked choke. And as you know, there are no rear naked chokes in Karate Combat. That's right. And many of his wins were by knockout due to strikes. And not just punches, kicks. I saw one that was credited as punches and kicks. So that to me is the experience you want when you're coming into Karate Combat. On the other hand, Mitchell Thorpe, he's now 3-1 in Karate Combat. He's got a ton of experience inside this pit, and we know how stressful it is to be in the pit. The only thing that's going to help with the stress of being in the pit for Elias Santos is being that hometown guy. Now, I think Thorpe probably is the right matchup to win this one, and I'll tell you why. Because when you see a guy whose many losses in MMA are due to grappling related situations, and you look at a guy like Thorpe, who is known to kind of tackle and bully people onto the pit wall. And as you know, when you're on the pit wall, you're not a grounded opponent. You can continue to be struck and struck and struck. And in Karate Combat, they only stand you back up if you're totally flat. But if you're at that 45-degree angle, you're stuck there. And I think Mitchell can stick a guy there who isn't so great at wrestling, even though this is Karate Combat. We saw a guy who we'll talk about later do that very successfully against a kickboxer, and that was the Bear Slayer Edgar Scrivers won his title contendership match through that grappling and tackling, even though it is Karate Combat. So for me, I'm going to go with Thorpe, but it would be interesting to see how Santos fares with the hometown and all this MMA experience.
Yeah, and of course, karate is a huge part of this, but Karate Combat is its own thing, so it's kind of special.
Yes.
Next up, we have somebody that I watched in the last fight, and they did a fantastic job, put a very entertaining fight up, and that's Tim Ha. But he's going up a different kind of competitor in Bruno Assis. What are your thoughts on this?
You just said it right. It's a new level for Tim Ha. Tim Ha is 1-1. His loss is actually to Lazar Kukulicic, who we talked about being an excellent fighter before, and that was a competitive fight. However, Bruno Assis, he has fought the who's who of Karate Combat. He's fought both guys fighting in the main event. He's fought just people who you look at them and you go, those are champions, former champions, they're going to be champion. That's the guys who Bruno Assis has fought, beaten, and lost to. So I think this is such a step up for Tim Ha. I think it's a bit early in his career in Karate Combat to be fighting a guy with 7 fights in Karate Combat. And, I'm just such a fan of Assis as an individual, as somebody who has gotten better every fight. I've not seen a single fight that followed another from Bruno Assis where I didn't see a new technique, a new level of focus, he just, you see it happen before your eyes. I think he is absolutely at the top of the pack. I don't think Tim Ha is there yet. However, Tim Ha is a gamer that can get him in trouble, but it could also give him a victory when he gets something sneaky by being aggressive. He's so aggressive. Still, nevertheless, I do think there are levels to this game. I'm strongly behind Assis for this fight, but your results may vary.
I agree, but Tim is chiseled from granite, so at any given
Totally.
any given fight, you never know what's going to happen. All right, next up we have a welterweight matchup between Jorge Perez and Joe Miyahara. What do you expect from this one?
Yeah, Jorge Perez is having a bit of a renaissance in Karate Combat. He was never at the title contender level, but he was a game guy, and we saw him defeat a UFC veteran in James Vick. It was a very not too interesting match, but he had the right strategy, and he clearly won it. It was slow paced, but he won it. And then most recently in the Dominican Republic, his home country, he just scored one of the most gorgeous knockouts, one of the most impressive, crushing knockouts of Gabriel Ichera. And Gabriel Ichera, not an easy man to finish, by the way. So he is going to be very hard to beat. Joe Miyahara, however, people love to talk about this gentleman because he's Japanese. They just love seeing a Japanese karate fighter. And why wouldn't you? It's the origin of the sport, the ancient origins, So this guy comes from legacy. And that has an impression on people and on the way that they spend their voting power in the Karate Combat tokens and their money. And I've seen him, he was a strong favorite in his debut fight. I actually bet against him in that fight. And he fought a gentleman named Leo Valdivia, who Ross Levine was telling me is going to be so hard to beat. He's the middleweight champion. But Miyahara pretty handily beat him. And Miyahara showed that he was able to endure a little bit of punishment in the first round. So he's very tough, which is great when you're fighting a guy with knockout power, is to have a chin and to have the ability to absorb punishment. And then his cardio just went, it's better. He had sharp technique. He was a grindhouse, kept moving forward. I actually think he's a bad matchup for Perez. So I think we could see Miyahara be an underdog in this situation, especially coming off that huge DR knockout from a hometown guy. But I think Miyahara is a good dark horse contender. We'll see how people vote, but I think Miyahara is a strong contender here.
All right, good to know. And now we're going to go to the co-main event. We have Stephanie Oliveira and Christina, and you're going to have to help me with the last name here. What's it?
Kavakapulu.
There you go. Okay, now I've seen her fight in the past, and she is an animal. What do you think we're going to see here?
Yeah, this is a fight I have been waiting for so long. It's a destiny fight. It's the fight that has to happen in this division. And I'm so happy and proud of both of them for having the patience to get to this and it being a title match. Now, I bet Christina Kavakapulu is thinking, why is it a title match? Oliveira's only had one fight in Karate Combat. I should be the champion. She probably feels that way. And whereas Oliveira probably feels like, I've been trying to fight you this whole time. I'm the enemy at the gates. Now, Kavakapulu, clearly one of the more technical fighters, period, in Karate Combat, man or woman. So she's going to come with technique, spinning techniques, sharp punching. She's very straight, throws a lot of straights, and they connect. Whereas Oliveira is more of a grindhouse type fighter, bullish, pushing forward. Oh, your little techniques are going to hit me? I don't care. I'll come through with the bloody nose. I'll come through with the black eye. That's Oliveira's approach. So this is an interesting stylistic matchup. I think Kavakapulu has to remain elusive because she does not have the power, the knockout power that other women in her division have, and yet she's beating them. Oliveira has stopping power. She's strong. She's muscular. She's powerful. She's got this MMA kind of style to her inside the pit that we saw when she first fought. I think this is an absolutely amazing match. I'm so excited for it. I actually think Kavakapulu probably has the edge in not only experience, but again, in strategy, tactics, and if she is able to not get sucked in to the dogfight that Oliveira is going to bring to her, then she could do what they call in boxing, boxing rather than fighting. Sure. Oliveira's goal here is going to be to turn this into a war and to incur damage on both sides and come out on top. And that's a very dangerous type of fighter and opponent. So really tough. I think the smart money, it's a little bit of an insulting phrase, I think the smart money is on Kavakapulu, but I don't think there's any dumb money on Oliveira.
Makes sense. All right, and now for the headliner. This is the lightweight championship between Luis Rocha and Edgar Scrivers, who you already mentioned, and these are some of the most experienced people in the pit. How do you think this one's going to go down?
This fight, I'm kind of getting goosebumps about it. First of all, I'm wearing the Bear Slayer shirt. So thank you, Edgar Scrivers, for the gift. I'm not biased in this case because my first Karate Combat Championship, back when I was working for them, I was in Budapest, Hungary, and it was Luis Rocha, then the contender, in a rematch where he had previously lost against the current champion then, Edgar Scrivers. And Luis Rocha came and we all saw what happened. It was a devastating knockout by punches. And, Edgar Scrivers thought he was just going to say, come hit me and keep moving forward. And that strategy turned out to be completely incorrect for the style of power and a power fighter that Luis Rocha is. Now, since then, we've seen a lot from both guys. We've seen Luis Rocha win a super fight against then champion Joshua Quayhagen. He moved up to a catchweight, so he was the smaller fighter coming up. And what a war that was! What a phenomenal fight that was! And then we saw him in, again, not a very exciting match, but a clear victory against Bruno Souza. Because, he didn't feel that he needed to do much. He was in command of the fight. It was slow paced. Why incur any damage? I understand from the fighter's perspective. Sure. So we see winning strategy. We've seen a little bit better cardio from him since that super fight. And nevertheless, his level of cardio is still not up to the par of the Bear Slayers. The Bear Slayer is a cardio machine. And he's put on a lot more muscle since that fight they originally had. He's way bigger. Because I've seen these guys in person. So it may not come through the TV all the time. But Edgar Scrivers has put on, like, let's say 7 to 10 pounds of muscle. That's not easy to do when you're training cardio and punching and punching. These guys aren't weightlifters. They're not bodybuilders. They're fighters. And he has 10 pounds of muscle on and still has his sharpness and speed. That is exactly what he needed to fight a rematch against Luis Rocha, because Luis Rocha is muscle bound. You talk about Tim Haw being made out of granite. You've seen this guy. He looks like a model. He looks like Zac Efron, you know? You know what I mean? He should be Thor in the movie, sure. Right? So I think this fight is very, very interesting. You've got one guy who realizes in Luis Rocha, I've got to fix my cardio. You know, if my cardio doesn't last me, I'm going to lose, because these guys are figuring out that they can survive me for a few rounds by hiding and running, and I'm wasting energy chasing them. And then I could lose a decision. He's keenly aware of that. Luis is so intelligent. Let me tell you, these guys, people think fighters are oafs or strong oafs. They couldn't be further from the truth, especially not at the championship level.
And Edgar, his strategy, the way he strategizes, I've seen the way he works through fights. He has a strategy and he works through it while he's fighting.
Absolutely. And he had the wrong one in the previous match. So you don't do the same thing over. You'd have to be crazy. So he's coming with an entirely revolutionized game plan, a revolutionized physique, a stronger body. So he's done, I think, everything he needs to do to win his championship back. But what we don't know is Luis Rocha's ability now to also evolve and change. So if Scrivers thinks he's fighting the same guy, and well, I'm stronger now, I have better cardio, I have a better strategy, I'm fighting the same guy, then I win. But is he fighting the same guy? Probably not. So again, I can't help too much in terms of having a strong opinion on picking one of these guys, but I do think that this is one of those rematches that was made in the stars. It's the right time for it. It is a rubber match. They each have a win on the other, a commanding win. They've each knocked each other out, so there's no psychological advantage that one has on the other guy, and they're both, you know, in their top form. I think this fight is probably for the number 2 pound for pound fighter behind Rafael Agaev. But I think either one of these guys should also then consider having a super fight against Rafael Agaev to see really who's number 1 pound for pound. So this is the absolute top. And if you're wondering, as just like an HBAR connoisseur, if you want to watch Karate Combat still, this is the fight to watch. If you only have time for one fight, this is the fight to watch. These are the best of the best of the best in the world. And I'm so happy that they're fighting each other again. And it hasn't been easy because they both have had multiple fights. Karate Combat made Scrivers fight 2 more times. He didn't get an instant rematch. So, and he won those fights against top tier talent. So I hope I've given everyone a good survey of this fight and of all the rest, Brandon.
Well, you certainly have. One thing, I don't want to look past Karate Combat 42, but I do want to get your take on something that was just announced, some talent that's going to be added to Karate Combat 43 with Benson Henderson and Anthony Pettis. So these guys are absolute legends in the space. What do you think about that?
It's really exciting. You know, the thing about that fight that is so exciting is not necessarily the fact that they're both former champions. It's the story of that fight. They have a history of fighting each other. They fought 2 times, once in one organization, the WEC, another one in the UFC. And there's a legendary kick called the Showtime kick where Anthony Pettis, we talked about running on the wall. He ran on the cage and threw the kick off the bounce off the cage. Amazing. And then in the rematch, he won with a submission hold. So a lot of people were like, we wanted more of a striking match. Well, Karate Combat's where you're going to get that. So it's, for the story of the fight, it's really excellent. You know, these guys are obviously, their championship years are a little bit further back, but it doesn't matter when you have such a gorgeous storyline. I'm very excited for this. The pit is the right environment for this fight at this stage of their careers. And not every fight has to be about winning a championship. You know, sometimes it's about the story and the pride, and just you put your emotions into these fights, and these guys certainly care to win. And when people care to win at any stage in their career, fireworks result. So it's congratulations to Karate Combat for booking that fight. I know it couldn't have been cheap. So these guys have a lot of star power, and there's going to be a lot more eyes on Karate Combat as a result. So
absolutely. But let's focus on Karate Combat 42. Get a few more tokens this round, so we have some more for that next fight in Karate Combat 43. So one last thing, Dane. If people want more information about these fighters, where can they go to find it?
Well, Nick Kalikas and I, who's a betting odds expert, we have a regular show that we put out on X, formerly known as Twitter, and we live stream it on Instagram, but then it all comes onto X later for posting and to exist in the world forevermore. So we'll be recording that on Wednesday. I'll try to have it up by Wednesday evening late, so voting will already be open on the Karate Combat app. You might be seeing this on Friday, I'm pretty sure, so it'll already be available to you. So go check out. I'm on Twitter. X at Dane Curley, Curley, and you can find it all right there really conveniently.
Well, Dane, as always, thank you so much for coming on and telling us all about Karate Combat 42.
Thank you, HBAR Bull. It's always a pleasure, and I hope I'll see you again in December.
So again, thanks to Dane for walking us through all that. Now, another thing that caught my eye, we talked a few weeks ago that Karate Combat was going to have some crypto influencers come on and do some battling in the pit. And we just heard about a new one, and it was Crypto Crow. Now, I met Crypto Crow. He is the nicest guy in the world, but he had some thoughts about it, so check it out.
So, I guess overall, the point of this video is just kind of let everybody know that has any questions. Like, why are you doing this at your age? I've seen some of the comments, like, don't set yourself up for embarrassment. Why would you do that? You're too old. And I think that ultimately, too, the other side of this is just bringing people together in the sense that we have this whole crypto sphere of people, of influencers, of followers, of those working to learn, to change their lives. And then we have this other group of people who are fight fans, and they're, they love the violence, and they love this and they love that, and the excitement of it all. And to be honest with you, I want to bring those two worlds together. I mean, Karate Combat is quite honestly one of the best promotions I've ever witnessed. And I've been to many over the years of my life. They run a really tight, solid ship. They're marketing machines. And I think anyone that can get on a Karate Combat card stands to benefit a great deal. Not like about the money. I have no idea what people get paid or any of that. I don't care. But the platform that it gives somebody who works really hard to achieve a certain level of talent in their field or their craft or their martial art, I just don't know I don't know a better place to do that. That's clean. There are bigger promotions in the world, but I really consider Karate Combat to be clean. They get it. They know what they're trying to do. And their app and everything that they do is built on a blockchain. It's built on a Hedera Hashgraph, on HBAR. And HBAR is a big sponsor of Karate Combat, and I think that's a smart move.
I really do feel like Karate Combat is doing all the right things and staying in the entertainment space. We had some new clips come out from Earthlings, and I highlight them every time because they are absolutely beautiful. Now, these are from their mini game that they're going to have not just for your computer, but they're going to have it on mobile as well. And Patrick from Earthlings narrated a little bit, so let's listen to what he had to say.
As you all know, we've been working on a Steam runner for quite a while now, and although we still have some bugs to fix and some adjustments to do here and there, you can see it's in its final stages now. We're improving the fire particle effect and sound, for instance. That's being done today, but we're also adding an animation that I forgot when she gets hit by it. Another thing is downsizing the grass a lot, and I have many more details on my list. I'm driving the builders mad, of course. We are actually also creating the mobile version now, as you can see in this screenshot. And as you can see, we added the NFT symbols here as well. They won't show up in the first beta version, but that's something that we're working on. I'm pushing the team a lot on the mobile version because I think that the game is even more suitable for mobile than for PC, and it's also a great way to tap into that market. On top of that, we are building the next scenes already. What do you think of a bull run in a town setting or a bear run in a forest? And yes, with bulls and with bears. Or do you want to run the dark underground of Paris? All of these things are being created now as well. And after we finalized all of this, we will look into the 3-lane multiplayer version. We will soon release more info on how to get listed for the test run, so keep an eye for that info on our social media channels. That's it actually. Thank you for watching again.
All right, and with that, let's get into some Hedera network analysis. Early in the week, we were cruising along at an impressive 1,800 transactions per second, which dropped off, but it has come screaming back. And as I'm speaking, we're at well over 2,000 transactions per second. And though I expect a little bit of a pullback at some point, we've been holding that for most of the day. Due to the dip midweek, we are under 1 billion transactions for the week, but if we maintain this pace, that's not going to last for long. We peaked out at just about 5,500 TPS over the past 24 hours. Time to consensus finality is still under 3.5 seconds, and we're still creating about 10,000 accounts per week. Moving down to our fungible tokens, the meme coin Zero is in the top spot, and I'm in talks with their team to get an interview. Karate is number 2, followed by Wrapped HBAR, Energy Trade Token, Sauce, Dovu, G Reward, USDC, Heliswap, and PMX Gaming, another one that I have to dig into. Looking at our NFTs, Hashback has once again taken the top spot. Road Code Access is in number 2. Zero's NFT is in the 3rd spot, followed by Hedera Monkeys, 2 Karate Combat themed Karateka NFTs, Blade Wallet Loyalty Card, Hangry Barboons, Hashgraph Punks, and Crazy Pixels rounds out the top 10. Speaking of Hashgraph Punks, their creator Patches, a superstar dev in our ecosystem, was just picked up by Swirls Labs. Very well deserved. And with that, we'll move on to some DeFi. Taking a look at DeFi Llama, not including state or liquid staking, the total value locked in the Hedera DeFi ecosystem is just about $34 million. Saucer Swap makes up nearly $30 million of that, and most of the rest is on Heliswap. The farming rewards on some of Saucer Swap's popular trading pairs stands at 5.4% on HBAR HBAR-X, 23% on HBAR Sauce, 30% on HBAR USDC, and 76% on HBAR Karate. Despite being a huge fan of Saucer Swap, don't go running after those Karate yields. They rose for good reason. People are pulling their Karate to participate in up-only gaming where the returns will likely be much higher. Over on Heliswap, HBAR HBAR-X is at 4%, 80% on HBAR Heli, 19% on HBAR USDC, and 60% on HBAR Karate. Now moving on to the HBAR and crypto markets, Bitcoin has had another good week, up about 3%. HBAR followed the upward crypto trend early this week, but its move was more muted and we underperformed. And there were plenty of frustrations voiced on X, the trolls being loudest of all. But HBAR has performed well over the past 24 hours, up over 7% to 5.5 cents. We need to remember that these markets move in cycles. There will be times when HBAR outperforms, as we had a couple times this year, and times when we lag. But the fundamentals are strong with this one, my friends. 5 cents has likely flipped to support. We're bumping up against some resistance now at in the 5.5 cent range. Hopefully we can flip that to support as well. Then the next area of resistance should be up around 6 cents. All right, that is all we have. We're going to be skipping next week, but Zep and I will both be back here in 2 weeks. I want to give another shout out to Patches for getting picked up by Swirls Labs. As I said, very well deserved. And with that, we're going to lead out again with that guide for Twigital. Enjoy it, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. First of all, we would like to thank you for your interest in using Twigital. Twigital is a first-of-its-kind utility that allows you to create digital twins and mint the resulting asset into an NFT. In this video, we're going to run you through the basics of Twigital's first product implementation, which comes in the form of an iOS application. If you haven't done so, go to the iOS App Store and download Twigital. Once installed, tap Open from the App Store or tap the Twigital icon on your home screen. The first time you open the app, you will be greeted with this screen. Tap Create Account, and you will be taken to a page where you will be prompted to review and agree to our terms and conditions. Tap Create Account, then your account ID, public and private keys will be displayed. Record these and save them in a safe location. At the bottom of that screen, tap Obtain Seed Phrase. The next screen will display your seed phrase. Again, record this phrase and store it in a safe location, as it's the only way you can recover this account if lost. Tap Confirm and Verify. Then use the recorded seed phrase to fill in the missing words and tap Sign In. And now you're ready to create your first Twigital. You can tap Add New Object or the plus icon in the upper right hand corner. There are a few options on your home screen, but to start we'll tap on Take Photos with Camera. Then you will be asked to allow Twigital to access your camera. Click OK, acknowledge our standard tip, and your camera display will open. Take a few to several dozen pictures of your object from all angles, even turning the object on its side to capture the bottom. Ambient light to minimize shadows, and a solid flat matte background, such as black, white, or gray, seems to work best. But if that's not an option, give it a shot anyway and see how it turns out. Photogrammetry is an art, and some objects may require adjusting lighting, background, camera distance, and playing with other variables to get the best result. Some objects will create a realistic 3D asset, while others may be more challenging. Lean into what works. When you're satisfied that you've taken enough pictures to capture the object, tap I'm done. The pictures will be zipped, uploaded, queued, processed, and the 3D object will be downloaded. This process may take several minutes. You will then be taken to an object preview screen where you can ensure that the 3D asset is of a quality you expected. If it's not, you can start over or take more pictures. If you are happy with the result, tap Continue. The next page will allow you to set your thumbnail. This image is how the asset will be displayed within the Twigital app, so ensure that it has the proper aspect and scale. Then you can enter the name of the object and add a description. You can also add supporting files by tapping here. You will be taken to this screen and you can tap Upload another file. It will give you the option to upload files from your camera roll or files. Choose and tap on the file you would like to attach to add authenticity, information, or context to your object. When all of the additional files are attached, tap Save and Continue. You will now be returned to the previous screen, and if ready to tokenize the object, tap Mint My Twigital. The Save for Later option allows you to save the 3D file, but not mint the NFT. The following is a success screen and will include your NFT's unique identifier. Tap Continue and you will be returned to the Home My Objects screen. You can then tap on the thumbnail. From the following screen, you can tap Share to display the Twigital cert and share with friends or on social media. You can also tap the 3D icon to inspect the asset in the object viewer, or even bring the object into augmented reality. You can also tokenize an existing file you have saved on your phone by tapping here, selecting the file, and following the steps already explained. Set the thumbnail, adding a name, description, supporting files, and tap Mint My Twigital. The files created by Twigital are zipped universal scene description files, or .usdz files. So this is the file type that can be tokenized using Twigital regardless of where they were created. The NFTs can easily be sent between Twigital users by tapping on the asset, tapping Send, entering the Hedera account number of the recipient here, tapping Send Preview, and OK Send on the following page. The recipient will receive a notification in the upper right-hand corner of their Home My Object screen, which they should tap. On the following page, scroll down and tap Associate if you are expecting the token, and shortly thereafter, the object will appear in your My Objects home screen. Twigital is a novel application that creates tokenized digital twins. These assets come in the form of 3D objects that will become building blocks utilized to populate spatial computing environments. Twigital is thrilled to offer the first solution that facilitates the creation of such file types. We view Twigital as a core utility, an integral piece of Web3-enabled infrastructure that will help fuel the tokenized economy. The world will be tokenized. It's time to start tokenizing the world with Twigital.